You ever seen a courtroom go so silent it felt like Judgment Day dropped early? Because that's exactly what happened when Diddy's lawyer, one of his top defense pit bulls, stood up in the middle of this federal firestorm and just quit. No warning. No excuse. No, Your Honor, I need a break. He just packed his files and walked.
Why?
Because of an audio that allegedly shook the courtroom to its core. Something so heavy, so dark, even a man who defended terrorists, drug lords, and mob bosses said, "I'm out." Now here's the kicker. This isn't the first time someone's jumped ship from Diddy's legal squad. It's like the closer we get to the truth, the more his defenders vanish. What was in that audio? What does it mean when a lawyer with decades of experience can't even finish the case? And what are prosecutors hiding behind sealed files, whispered deals, and courtrooms packed with press? This isn't just about one man. This could be the unraveling of the entire empire. Let's break down why Diddy's defense is collapsing from the inside out, and what's coming next. Let's rewind a little. February 21st, 2025. Just 3 months before the trial that could send Sean Diddy Combs to prison for the rest of his life, one of his key defense attorneys, Anthony Rico, filed a quiet but shocking motion to withdraw from the case. He didn't hold a press conference. He didn't tweet some dramatic "I'm done" message. He just filed a motion. But that motion hit like a bomb. It was cold,
Strategic.
and deeply unsettling. For the reasons set forth below, this motion for withdrawal is filed so that Mr. Combs may proceed without delay. That's it. No detail. No explanation. Just silence and a lawyer running from a case he once called defensible. Now, if you're not familiar with who Anthony Rico is, here's why this shook everyone in the legal world. This man isn't some fresh law school grad who got scared. Rico is a battle-tested legal legend. The kind of lawyer who eats federal indictments for breakfast. He's handled death penalty cases, terrorism trials, international conspiracies. He's taught law, led teams, and stared down the US government without blinking. So when he taps out of a case, people start asking questions. Big ones. Was it a conflict of interest? Was there an ethical breach? Or did he hear something so vile, so legally radioactive, that not even he could spin it into reasonable doubt? According to legal insiders, that might be exactly what happened. Let's talk about the audio. While the court filings never explicitly mention it, word began spreading fast. People close to the courtroom, journalists, assistants, even rival legal teams, began whispering about something that got played behind closed doors. A private session. No cameras. Limited transcripts. And inside that sealed moment, a piece of evidence was played that changed the energy of the entire room. Some say it was a recording, audio captured from inside a luxury hotel suite in 2016. Others claim it was surveillance footage, enhanced, slowed down, paired with a phone call to security. What we know for sure is this. The Cassie Ventura incident, the same one where surveillance footage showed Diddy assaulting her in a hotel hallway, became a turning point in this case. When CNN leaked that footage in 2024, the internet exploded. But it wasn't just the video. It was what you heard. Cassie's voice. Pleading.
Crying.
Calling for help. And when that same footage was formally introduced in court as evidence, with full audio restored, it didn't just silence the gallery. It made grown men shift in their seats. According to multiple reports, the jury froze. The judge stared stone-faced. And Anthony Rico? He quit right after that session. Coincidence? Maybe. But timing like that doesn't lie. Even if that audio wasn't the only reason for Rico's departure, it clearly shook the defense's internal structure. Let's be honest, this wasn't the only thing going wrong for Diddy. Behind the scenes, the defense was already cracking. Tensions over strategy, conflicting personalities, growing public outrage. The media was everywhere. Every court date had paparazzi. Civil lawsuits were piling up in the background, more than 60 at last count. And witnesses were flipping. Some even said they'd testify in open court. Rico, at one point, was seen laughing with Diddy, passing notes, hugging him after hearings. He wasn't just another lawyer. He was part of the trusted inner circle. So for him to walk away, this late, with no explanation, that's not strategy. That's abandonment. Former federal prosecutors weighed in almost immediately. Some speculated Rico left due to a disagreement over defense tactics. Others wondered if he'd discovered a conflict of interest. Maybe he'd previously represented someone involved. One theory even suggested he'd been approached by someone tied to the victims and realized he couldn't continue ethically. And then there was the money angle. Not because Diddy couldn't pay, please. Diddy's got faults. But because lawyers of Rico's caliber don't stake their reputation on clients who don't listen. And Diddy's camp was reportedly fractured, with multiple lawyers pulling in different directions, especially when they attempted to dismiss the Mann Act charge, a federal law rooted in preventing the transport of individuals for prostitution. Diddy's legal team argued the Mann Act had racist roots, that it was selectively applied, that it shouldn't apply to him. But judges don't toss charges based on historic discomfort alone. The courtroom doesn't work like Twitter. You need precedent. You need hard proof of bias. And when the judge rejected that argument, around the same time Rico was finalizing his exit, you could almost sense the unraveling. Now let's talk about what makes this exit so important. Diddy is not on trial for a parking ticket. He's facing allegations that stretch from sex trafficking to racketeering, with multiple women accusing him of manipulating, coercing, drugging, and assaulting them over decades. And one of the few lawyers capable of defending someone at that level just quit. When was the last time you saw a celebrity this big, this powerful, lose one of his most elite defenders, just weeks before trial? You haven't. Because it doesn't happen. Not unless the case is sinking fast. And the public noticed. Hashtag Diddy Defense Collapse started trending. YouTubers did full breakdowns of Rico's resume. Legal TikTok went wild with speculation. And fans or former fans started to turn. Even his lawyer couldn't stay. What's coming next must be worse. Rico saw the truth and ran. That was the mood. And in court, the stakes couldn't be higher. The moment Rico left, all eyes turned to Mark Agnifilo, now Diddy's lead defense. Agnifalo's good, no doubt. But with Rico gone, and civil suits rising like a tide in the background, Diddy's legal fortress just lost its most solid wall. And the prosecution? They didn't flinch. They welcomed the confusion. Because chaos in the defense camp is a gift in court, especially when the next move is even darker. Because the real fireworks hadn't even started yet. By the time Anthony Rico walked out, the courtroom energy had already shifted. It wasn't just the leaked footage. It wasn't just the whispers about explosive audio. It was the realization that this trial wasn't going to be business as usual. It was going to be war. May 12th, 2025. The trial officially begins inside the Daniel Patrick Moynihan Courthouse in Manhattan. Outside, crowds gathered behind barricades. Inside, a swarm of reporters filled every seat they could get. Diddy sat surrounded by what remained of his legal team, stone-faced, eyes forward. On the prosecution side, they were locked in.
Calm.
Like they'd been waiting for this day for years. The opening statement was surgical. They laid out their case not as a list of events, but as a pattern. A system built on manipulation, coercion, and control. A hidden empire behind the music, the parties, the glamour. One witness, they said, would reveal what went on behind those penthouse doors. Another would show the cash trails, the hush payments. And then, of course, there was the video. The Cassie video. By now, almost everyone had seen it. The footage from 2016. A hotel hallway. Diddy violently attacking his then-girlfriend Cassie Ventura. CNN released it a year prior, and the internet nearly caught fire. But what wasn't public, at least not then, was the uncut courtroom version, complete with audio. Cassie's voice. The screams. The impact. And when prosecutors played that in court, silence. According to insiders, the jury didn't blink. The judge leaned back in his seat. And Diddy, for once, looked shaken. This wasn't just a scandal. It was evidence. The prosecution built from there. They introduced witness after witness. Former assistants. Bodyguards. Associates. Each one painted the same picture. Power, fear, silence. One man even claimed he was paid to stay quiet after walking in on Diddy mid-assault. Another described being threatened with a lawsuit if he ever spoke about what he'd seen during those parties. Then came Daniel Phillips, a male entertainer hired for private events. He took the stand and dropped what many in the gallery later called the darkest testimony so far. According to Phillips, he was paid to sleep with Cassie Ventura while Diddy watched. He described the scene: a hotel room, dimly lit, Cassie in red lingerie, Diddy in a white robe, filming from a chair in the corner. When Phillips hesitated mid-testimony, the room went cold. He reportedly said, "I didn't know what I was walking into. I thought it was a bachelor party. But once I was there, I felt trapped." Cassie wasn't present during this testimony, but her legal team was. And according to reporters, they didn't flinch, because they knew what was coming next. Cassie herself was expected to take the stand. But here's the thing, when the prosecution hinted at that, Diddy's team started panicking behind the scenes. According to courtroom observers, there were last-minute filings, objections, even murmurs of trying to reach a new plea deal to avoid further testimony. But the judge didn't budge. The evidence was coming, and no one was going to stop it now. Meanwhile, the outside world was catching up fast. Clips from inside the courtroom were being reenacted on TikTok. Podcasts were dropping hour-by-hour updates. YouTubers were counting down the days until the Cassie episode. And Twitter, now X, was absolutely melting down. Hashtag Diddy trial. Hashtag Cassie takes the stand. Hashtag justice for Kim Porter. All trending. Speaking of Kim Porter, her name started floating around the courtroom again. Not because of any legal connection to the case, but because of the vibe. The suspicion. The long-standing rumors that her death in 2018 wasn't what it seemed. And Monique, Cat Williams, even Kim's ex-LB, sure had all publicly raised questions in the past. And now, with Diddy on trial for trafficking, manipulation, and violence, those conspiracy theories didn't feel like fiction anymore.
They felt like foreshadowing.
People started digging. A resurfaced interview with Kim's former bodyguard Gene Deal went viral, where he questioned the official pneumonia report and asked why the scene of her death was allegedly never investigated properly. Was it relevant to the trial?
No.
Was it fueling the public's fury? Absolutely. And here's where Diddy's PR nightmare went nuclear. Inside the courtroom, things were grim. Outside, they were uncontrollable. A leaked report claimed that Diddy had used other inmates' phone accounts to make unauthorized calls from jail, allegedly trying to contact witnesses indirectly. Prosecutors called it witness tampering in plain sight. His defense team denied it. But the damage was already done. Then came the civil suits. Over 60 and counting. Each one echoing the same themes: drugs, coercion, silence, control. Women from across the country. Allegations stretching back to the 90s. Some had been settled. Some were pending. But each one added weight.
Noise.
Pressure. And to top it off, rumors began swirling that Monique herself had been warned to back off. She'd made jokes on tour about Diddy's baby oil empire and about TD Jakes allegedly being connected to it all. But her tone shifted in recent interviews. Subtle. Nervous. Like someone who suddenly realized she was playing with live wire. Cat Williams, on the other hand, doubled down. He went live the day after Cassie's courtroom video dropped.
And he didn't hold back.
Y'all thought I was crazy. I told you. This ain't new. They just ain't been able to hide it anymore. And that's what this trial is really about. Not just the evidence. Not just the victims. But the truth behind a man who built an empire on charm, success, and silence. And what happens when all of that starts falling apart in front of the world. As week 2 of the trial began, Diddy's legal team was running out of ways to spin it. His once stacked roster of attorneys now moved like a tired squad scrambling to patch holes in a sinking ship. Lead attorney Mark Agnifilo kept the argument focused on one word: consent. Every time a new witness took the stand, the defense clung to it like a life raft. But that word was starting to lose power. Because consent doesn't sound like screaming on surveillance tape. It doesn't sound like a man throwing money at a hotel guard after assaulting a woman. And it sure as hell doesn't sound like witness after witness describing being drugged, manipulated, or silenced into compliance, sometimes over the course of years. The prosecution wasn't just building a case. They were constructing a timeline, a pattern, one that started long before Cassie and stretched far beyond a single freak-off party. They called forward a former bad boy assistant. She never filed a lawsuit, never went public, but under oath, she described how young women would be recruited for parties, told they were there to dance or mingle, and then pressured to go upstairs. When she refused to keep quiet, she claimed she was blackballed from the industry. That word again, blackballed. It's the same word Monique used, the same one Cat Williams used, the same one people like Aubrey O'Day have screamed for years, but were labeled bitter or crazy. Now, it sounded different. Now, it sounded like the truth. By May 19th, 2025, Diddy was no longer the mogul in control of the room. He was a defendant watching his empire get deconstructed by people who once lived in its shadow. But still, no testimony from Cassie. And the courtroom was on edge. That changed the next day. Courtroom reporters described it as electric. Cassie Ventura entered through the side door, accompanied by security, dressed in gray. No makeup, no glam. Just ready. The judge gave the room a warning. No outbursts. No reactions. And then, for the first time since the video was shown, the woman in that footage took the stand. She spoke softly at first.
Calm.
Then firmer. She described how they met. How things started as glamorous, red carpets, gifts, promises. How quickly it changed. How she was encouraged to take pills, drink more, sleep less. How she was isolated from friends. How she was filmed without consent. How she was used. And then she said it. I didn't know I was in danger until it was too late. One juror wiped tears. Another stared at the floor.
And Diddy?
He didn't look up once. Cassie's full testimony lasted 2 hours. She left without speaking to press. But her impact was irreversible. From that point forward, the defense struggled to hold the narrative together. Their counterargument? She stayed. She partied. She didn't leave. But prosecutors called it what it was: trauma bonding, emotional manipulation,
Fear.
And in a final blow, they brought in a clinical psychologist who explained how abuse survivors often protect their abusers, especially when power, fame, and threats are in play. The courtroom shifted again. The media ran with it. And Diddy's name, once associated with platinum plaques and champagne deals, was now tethered to one word: predator. But it wasn't just him on trial anymore. The entire industry was being dragged into the light. Clips of past interviews resurfaced, people laughing off freaky parties, stars joking about white parties in the Hamptons. Now, it didn't sound funny. It sounded like they knew, and they stayed quiet. This is what Monique had warned about. This is what Cat Williams had tried to tell everyone. Silence protects power, and power, unchecked, protects predators.
And now?
The silence was breaking. Even inside the courtroom, Diddy's own family began to distance themselves. On May 21st, reporters captured a moment outside the courthouse. Diddy's twin daughters walking out with their heads down after particularly graphic testimony. They didn't return for the afternoon session. That same evening, whispers started online. A plea deal might be on the table again. Not confirmed. Just floated. But it said everything. Because powerful men don't take plea deals unless they're cornered. And Diddy? He was surrounded. The video was real. The witnesses were credible. The lawyers were tired. The money couldn't stop the truth anymore. Not this time. As the prosecution prepared its closing arguments, one final witness was requested, a former music executive who once worked with Diddy at Bad Boy Records. But he never made it to court, because hours before his scheduled appearance, he was hospitalized under suspicious circumstances, according to a leaked internal memo. No other details were given, but the judge paused the proceedings to investigate. And that brings us to now. The trial is still ongoing. The verdict hasn't dropped, but the collapse is already in motion. The man once known for running New York is now known for running out of allies. His inner circle has shrunk. His defenders have gone silent. And the public, once starstruck, now wants answers. Who knew? Who helped? Who stayed quiet to protect their seat at the table? Because Diddy's trial isn't just about what happened in hotel rooms and behind velvet ropes. It's about how long the music industry turned its back just to keep the hits coming.
And now?
Now, the tape is rolling, and the truth has a mic of its own. So now you've seen it for yourself. The courtroom didn't just witness a defense unravel, it watched a legacy collapse. One of the most powerful men in music, left with no one to defend him but silence and excuses. His lawyer quit, his image cracked, and his victims? They finally spoke. But here's the question. Was this just the beginning? Because if this trial has taught us anything, it's that Diddy wasn't moving alone. There are more names, more secrets, and more stories waiting to break. The walls are closing in, not just on him, but on every enabler who cashed the checks and looked the other way. So, what would you have done if you were in that courtroom? Do you believe this is justice or just damage control? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you're still trying to process what you just heard. And hit that subscribe button because next time, we're revealing the one celebrity name that showed up in sealed court documents. And it's someone you'd never expect. We're not done exposing the truth. Not even close.